Welcome to Sex and Breakfast, the sexy way to start your day. Dishing out sexpert advice and spicy insights about sex, love, and everything in between. Hosted by sex coaches and therapists from around the globe.
Hello, lovelies. So, today we are cooking on the issue around body image and sexuality and why this conversation matters and close to my heart. Um, when I was working in eating disorder, I saw the impact of body image, not just on self esteem and mental health, but also on sexuality. A bit of statistic on eating disorder itself. In Singapore alone, anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa began at average of 14 years old. So imagine having that problem, having the disordered eating or eating disorder since at the young age. And in 2023 alone, around 140 youngsters between the age of 11 and 18 years old were newly diagnosed at Eating Disorder Center Hospital in Singapore, and the case continued to double. And it's not just for female, male patients also experiencing it. And in the US alone, around 9%, 9% of the US population, or around 28.8 million American, will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. So that's on the spectrum of the eating disorder alone. And so this conversation is really matter because body image is also part of sexuality and how we feel about our bodies, whether we know it or not, the way we see, the way we feel, the way we think about our body has a really big influence on every day, and including all the decisions that we make. And sometimes people with issue with body image may have make choices that are not healthy. And so hopefully with highlighting this issue can help the listener to consider how to develop a healthy body image, as well as understanding what are the issues that impact body image, including the feeling of shame that we internalize, challenging the media, adverse in the media literacy, and finding a way to define healthy body image that can promote healthy sexuality. So let's dive in. Maybe I will start with defining what is body image. And so research outlines that really, as mentioned earlier, body image is really the way our mind pictures or sees our body at any given moment in time. And the image is shaped as a result of key important relationship when we're young, including emotional events and also social expectation when the moment we are young. We call this internalized emotional events and social expectation as sexual script. So it's the kind of script that we internalize in our mind around our sexuality, including our body. And these are the things that what our families say about our body, how they treat each other's body, and including how parents, mother, teacher, it can be explicit or implicit, and this behavior can be shaped from young. So, what personal story that I remember is usually during Hari Raya is such a big event in our country. So when aunties meet, they will start talking about bodies like, oh, you look good, skinny. Sometimes some auntie will go and pinch each other's waist, and that can be very triggering, you know. So imagine growing up with this kind of messaging around our body, or our mom continuously checking herself in the mirror and kind of like commenting negatively about their body, etc. Or yeah, so that's some of the things that example of how we internalize this sexual script. So I would like to hear more from the rest. What are their experience? Yes, Nicole.
So I was born and raised in LA, Hollywood.
Oh,
So
yes.
image has and continues to play a large role in the culture there. And I love that there's a more of a trend towards wellness instead of, uh, what it has been in the past. However, what I found out growing up is that everyone was like blonde and skinny, and you grow up at a really young age going to the beach and wearing bikinis. And I was very fortunate that I studied abroad in high school in Costa Rica. And it was the ability for me to get outside of my cultural bubble at a young age and witness other body types and ways that people look that helped redefine me as a teenager to come back and be like, oh, not everyone is like blonde and skinny and tan and this and that and obsessed with like working out. And I felt like that was a very helpful and healthy thing for me to experience at a young age. But I know that we can get stuck in a mindset based off of our surroundings that isn't necessarily quote unquote normal with a body type.
That is a really good one. I also remember growing up in Jakarta or Indonesia, they have this standard beauty that comes up in the magazines or medias. The standard beauty, Indonesian standard beauty, usually have a very long, flowy black hair, jet black, straight black hair. So I remember getting my hair getting straightened up. That's like a rite of passage, and a certain lighter color skin, a certain shape nose. So yeah, so all this kind of beauty standard also happening around the world as well.
What you were sharing about the aunties pinching each other, it reminded me of the confusing messages I had growing up and witnessed my mom. Also, she would comment on when she would go to see family that she hadn't seen. One of the first things people would do was comment directly on her body and how it changed. And no matter which direction it was changing in, there was some commentary to be had. And I am of two cultures. I'm Filipino and Puerto Rican. So those body types naturally are very different in height and how the female shape, hips versus less hips. And, there's these extremes in both sides. So me growing up with a fusion of those, um, it was interesting to have receive commentary as a blooming young woman, and where depending on the age, it can come over sexualized too early, like, oh, your hips are coming in, or like it just gets really, really confusing. And I remember my mom kind of warning me when I was going to go to Puerto Rico that compared to how you grew up in California, you may feel for the first time outward commentary from strangers while walking down the beach. And she taught me to just like don't give eye contact and like just stay the course, and it may feel really intense. And it was kind of like I before I even landed in Puerto Rico, I had to like brace myself for this type of commentary. And another kind of aspect, I think you already mentioned, did you mention like nose shape? Like,
No, yeah, go for it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I recently went to the Philippines for the first time, and I was at a drugstore in the makeup section, basically like a Walgreens or a Rite Aid in the Philippines, and I felt such extreme sadness. First, I felt like I was being complimented by these women. They were coming up to me and asking to take my photo, and they were like, "You're Filipino, but obviously something else because your nose isn't flat like ours." And at first,
Yes,
I was like,
nose is a big thing. Yeah.
"Yeah," and I felt like I was getting complimented, but then I realized in the next breath these women were really sad and they were starting to poke their own noses and wishing they had mine, and they thought that theirs was ugly. And I was like, oh no, because from my standpoint, of course, they were all to be celebrated in their own ways, and they were working at makeup counters, so they were very aware of this to the length that they felt bad about themselves when they saw me. That's kind of the stuff that I'm thinking of, Dion, when you shared that, and how to hold space for reclaiming your cultural beauties.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a
Yeah.
whole process.
Amidst the media noise and it's like it's so subtle. You kind of like swimming around it, and you don't even know the water you are swimming in.
Yeah, and for me, you ladies reminded me of my my aunties and uncles on my dad's side of the family who would always say that I was like a chubby kid. They called me chipmunk cheeks and would always pinch my side. My grandpa especially would always like pinch my side. I hated it. And it was, when he's not an auntie, he was a grandfather. The aunties, not so much. I was like, oh, they're just the aunties. And my grandfather would do it too. He was like, oh, you're getting bigger. And I was like, okay, great. And then that side of the family, they all dyed their hair because they're from Southern California, right? And but they are not natural blondes. They're mostly white mix. And then on my mom's side of the family, it's like they're like Hispanic and Italian, and they're like shorter. I was 5'9.5", so I was pretty tall, and I had my big wavy hair, and I was the only one, believe it or not, in the family who had it, but they were a lot darker. So, because I'm pretty sure that was the Hispanic and the Italian in them, and yeah, it was like two contrasting places, and like they're like, oh, you're too skinny, you got to eat more. You know? So it's like, I don't know what to do. And even my mom today, she's like, oh, you gotta, you should make sure you eat. And she always has food. But thinking of body image, I'm thinking back to my mom's side came from New York, so I got LA and the juxtaposition of New York City, right? And I remember as soon as I had breasts, I was like 10, my mom like sat me down and she had a talk with me, and she was like, just kind of like what your mom did when you went to Puerto Rico, Norlin. And she was like, you have to stand tall, you have to know how to defend yourself, you have to speak up, do not ever look anyone in the eye, look down, but stand tall, and don't say anything back to them. Just if you have to, look at them. It was like a minute. She like taught me this menacing look. I'm like, okay, I got this. So it's like I part of it was like a street smarts thing,
Yeah.
as well as we're walking down the streets in New York City, and I don't know why she would let me do this, but I would go out of my grandma's house and just like wander around the corner to the basketball park and like go around to where the park is and hang out there. But yeah, it was really interesting, kind of like this thing, like, okay, you're turning into a woman now. You need to be careful.
Oh, I remember that too, because we used to have a uniform, a button uniform, and then my grandma will put a clipping on between because if with certain T-shirt, if you have certain size chest, it will pop out, and yeah, and so my grandma will put on like clip in between. Yeah, so that's one of the thing where Yeah, and start asking me to wear bra, and on top of the bra wearing like the another twin set kind of thing, so that it's all covered up. So all this kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, preventative measure.
It was like something that my mom celebrated, but also she's like, you
Yeah,
have to be careful now.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have to be careful.
yes,
And it was like these mixed messages. And I just, it's so interesting when I think back on that too. Like, oh, wow, that's true. The
yes.
celebration, but then also
How
like you
our
have,
body is dangerous.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
This is reminding me of like summertime in high school where it was like it's so hot and you trying to just honestly just wear stuff to make so you're comfortable, but the spaghetti strap rules, how many inches across the shoulders, it became very like girls were getting sent to the office all the time and measuring by their fingertips how short things were, and it's kind of like, well, who is this really for? And there was definitely narrative around, well, you're distracting the boys. And that's shouldn't be our problem, right? But we were the ones that were suffering this kind of scrutiny when a lot of the clothing was quite appropriate, in a very general sense. But yeah, oof, lots of memories.
oh yeah. So these are what we call sexual script, the kind of script that we internalize, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And that going to be shaping the way we feel about our body image, and the way we relate to our body, and in terms of our sexuality. So this is such a great segue to talk about what are the common strategies, or common, not strategies yet, but common struggles that we see in our coaching or therapy session around these issues. I think for me, one of the issue that I've seen usually when there's a big change in the body, do pregnancy, for example, and they feel like the body is not as perky, or start to have stretch mark, and that can really impact my clients, female client, vulva owners client, sense of their attractiveness, and they feel, oh, I'm no longer attractive, my breast is sagging, will my husband still find me attractive? I've seen this a lot in my practice, and it goes so far as the impact of this could come or could look like a low libido, for example, or avoiding any sexual initiation from the partner, and then the partner feel rejected, thinking, oh, they don't love me anymore, and then the cycle continues. So I've seen it a lot, and these are one of those things that really make me feel sad.
I think that when I have been dealing with almost everybody, really, I can't think of one person that hasn't had some type of negative connotation when it comes to their body in some way. And I know we were talking about external body image, but all it takes is one person in a sexual encounter to say your genitals look weird, ugly, small, whatever. And it's such a shut off. It's such a valve that completely shuts down people's sexual expression. And so I've dealt with a lot of people who have had a childhood or early or even later on in their sexual experiences, someone who said something very negative about their genitals and the way their body looks. And for men, it can show up in a lot of different sexual concerns and dysfunctions. And for women too, it can completely just shut you down in a way that is just so not where you're supposed to be, and trying to get women back to this place where they can feel pleasure again and feel like free in their bodies. And when I see couples, one of the first things I do recommend is for the other partner to really be super body affirming. You know, don't just assume that your partner knows they look hot, or that they like you love their breast, or like their vulva looks so plump and bright and blossoming. You have to really speak it, because for every negative experience they've had, they need like 100 more positive affirmations to really combat that negative thought that's stuck in their head now.
Really, thank you for bringing that up, because aside from, like you say, the shape of the body, there are also unspoken myth around genitals, genital shapes, what a vulva should look like, penis size, that only shows up when we have the intimate sexual relationship, right? And then that can come shows up like erectile dysfunction, um, ejaculation issue and stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate you bring this up.
All of my clients have come from a place where their partners are so loving and caring, and they have this feeling of unworthiness. They don't recognize their own worth or value, and they have, most of them have body dysmorphia, so which is the feeling that it's, you don't look like how you actually are, but like you think you look like something else. I actually have it. So that's probably why I have my clients just come to me with these issues. But most of them have it too, and it's this place where you have to get to the root issue of just being in this place where you're okay with how you look. Not that you have to love your body. Like, you know, everyone's like, you have to love your body, which I feel you can get to eventually. But it's also this place where you have to just be okay with your body at first.
Thanks for bringing it up, Dominic. Yes, I mean, body dysmorphic disorder is actually, like you say, is one of the mental health condition. In a layman term, is you have difficulties to stop thinking about one or more perceived flaws in your appearance, in your body, and sometimes this flaw may you may feel like it appears, and the flaw may appear minor and cannot be seen by others, but you may feel highly embarrassed, highly ashamed and anxious, and it can go as far as avoiding certain social situation. And this is one of those things where you have this intense focus on your appearance and body image. Some do repeated checking in the mirror, or grooming, or seeking reassurance, sometimes for many hours. And this repetitive behavior can also cause stress. And some goes as far as seeking numerous cosmetic procedures to fix the flaw. And so it's important that you try to seek out mental health help, including maybe seeing psychiatrists and seeing psychologists, medication, etc. So this is an important thing to bring up. Thank you, Dominic. How about comparison media, social media, comparison culture? Do you also experience that in your sessions?
I will say that I think it's pretty safe to assume that there isn't a single woman in across cultures, like if you're exposed to television, media, social media, it's in there. And it may look a little bit different depending on the cultural lens you have. But I think it's, safe to assume that any client, regardless of gender, and a lot of times when body image comes up, we talk about we do hyper focus on the female bodied individual. But I want to kind of take a moment to honor and expand that this goes to any human being in any body, regardless of gender. There's messages baked into what the shoulds, and bringing it back a little closer to like what's really, really current. I mean, things like filters I only used a filter once to just play with it. And I think it was on Snapchat or maybe it was on Instagram. And it was one of the first kind of versions where it gave me like fuller lips and like it widened my eyes. And I kind of looked not quite like a Disney character, the animated, but it like doll eyes. And this feeling came over me that I remember was like so strongly somatic of like I gasped. I was like, oh, she looks so beautiful. Like I loved it. Like and then I was like, wait, but that's not me. And it was just, and it was happened in an instant. And I thought, you know what? I'm never going to look at one of these ever again. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm an adult with an adult fully formed brain. What's happening to the 12-year-old girls that are looking at these filters? And so if we look at Generation Y, millennials and later, whatever I experienced, it's tenfold. And so I think even if a client doesn't name it as, hey, I'm here to work with body image, I think it's pretty safe to assume that this is an area to be discussed. We shouldn't assume what they're dealing with, but just to have it be in our kind of general area of exploration, so to speak. It's on the table.
Oh yeah, totally. Especially when they reach certain age. I mean, you were mentioning this happened across genders, but across age. And as the new generation grew up with filters are growing to aging, how they feel about their aging body, and there's also a myth circulating around age body does not deserve the attention that it's well deserved, or does not deserve good sex, and etc. So there's also that myth circulating, and we're kind of like up against it.
And also, for porn, people that watch porn, I see that as well as, oh, I look at this body and it looks so like this when it's having sex. And my body doesn't look like that. And, I spend a lot of time educating my clients that this is a performer. They're looking at a very specific angle. Everything is, like Dr. Norland said, it's filtered and augmented. Like that is not what a, like, quote unquote normal person looks like when they're having sex, and so that can also play a key role on just how you feel about your body when you're in partnered sex.
This is also a good segue to talk about how do we deal with this issue when it shows up in our sessions. So Nicole, you mentioned about the unrealistic expectation of what the genital should look like, etc. One of the trick and tips that I use in my session is to show a different vulva, a picture of different vulva and different penis, and I will put in the show notes. There are 2 books, and it's like a photography. It's just of different type of genitals, and looking at it alone could be quite illuminating. And I remember some clients even tear up because they see, oh, this my vulva is normal. When they look at different shapes of vulva, when they look at different shape of penis, and they kind of like, this is normal? Yeah, this is normal. Do you know how many years I carry this information, like decades of information, that mine is not normal, just because something that they've seen in the media, etc.
Yeah, I would love to share and I'm pretty sure we've all used it at some point with our clients. But the mirror, oh my gosh, I just blanked on the term. It's like the mirror exercise where they stand in front of the mirror and they say, and you can go from the top up or the bottom down, preferably a full length mirror, preferably naked. You can just do it in a half mirror if you'd like, but you just say, you look at your eyes. I love my eyes. I love my cheeks. I love my lips. And you can go all the way down to every part of your body. Or just go, I love. And that's just one way of how I use it with my clients, usually not until like the second or third session. when I get to know them a little bit better. But that one really works wonders. And I know that's also a tool that all of our mentor, Dr. Patty, used. I don't know if she created it. Did she create it?
I know I mean, there's multiple different ones out there, and I
Yeah.
remember specifically at a sexology retreat, she had one that involved us, um, I believe, thanking each body part for what it
Yes.
offered. And I
Yes.
love what you described, Dominique, because we ultimately want to affirm and say aloud that we love our bodies, but sometimes, especially when it feels like that's far off, that loving bit.
Mm-hmm.
I like Dr. Patty's method too of saying, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
legs, for doing this. Thank you, stretch marks. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
naming the powerful things that our body has done for us and shown up as a part of that self-love exercise. So,
Yeah, thank you. That's the first version, and then I transformed it into the word
Yeah.
love. Like
Oh, that's a good one.
I love. Yeah, it's like not until you get to know them. It's usually like
Mhm.
sometime a little bit after the first session, and they usually a lot of them at first are like, oh gosh, that sounds hard, and then I'm like, okay, we'll just start with something simple like your hands and how hard they work. Like I love your hands. Think of how much they do. Your eyes, your feet. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's just, and then eventually working up to the full body piece.
and speaking of mirrors, I like one called the True Mirror. And I've seen videos of I think the original creator of the True Mirror use this at kind of like at fairs, places where there's just like lots of people kind of walking around, and he's like, hey, try it, take a look at this mirror and see how you feel. And the True Mirror is a non-reversing mirror, so essentially when you look through it, you get to see the true image that somebody standing in front of you when they're actually looking at your face sees. Because what we see is this reversed version, what we see in photos, and or like the selfie, can be kind of, that's not really how the world is seeing you. So I really love this practice to have a true mirror, or to use the feature on your phone to like reverse it back, so that you can recognize that all of the scrutiny that you're doing to your selfies isn't really even the face that people are seeing outwardly. So loving that face is another process. And it kind of, for me, when I first saw this technique, I was moved to tears, because in these videos, and I'll try and put in the show notes some beautiful experiences, people seeing themselves for the first time and eye gazing. People a lot of times get teary-eyed because of this epiphany that, like, whoa, this face that I'm like, pulling apart, and we're as symmetrical as we feel, there's always these nuances. And then when you kind of zoom out and go, wow, this isn't even the face, this is the one. It's really powerful.
Another great exercise is witnessing. And if it's appropriate with clients, to witness whatever body part they're feeling uncomfortable with. Betty Dobson who has passed, but her predecessor has taken over her classes, her body sex classes, and they do these incredible vaginal witnessing circles where you're in a circle with other women or vagina owners, and you all get to just witness each other, and being in a space where you can just be like, oh, like, if they're beautiful, I must be beautiful because they're so beautiful. And it really just brings a totally different dynamic to it when there isn't a mirror, but you're just witnessing, being witnessed, and witnessing other bodies, and seeing everyone in their beauty and their differences, and just being beautiful.
Oh, thank you for all these powerful, powerful exercise and tools that can help us to embrace the beauty of our body and soul. I mean, even including little daily affirmation. Before you get out, while you're checking yourself in the mirror, before you go on doing your daily routine, like, thank you, eyes, for watching over me. Like, oh, hi, hair, you look very great today. So just little daily affirmation like that can makes a lot difference. Any one key takeaway or message that you want to give out to our listener?
I mean, I'll just say that sex coaches or similar professions like ours is a wonderful way to explore this if this has been something you've been struggling with or want to just take a closer look at and feel empowered. This is what we're about as sex coaches, to rebuild that relationship with self and empower you.
Yeah, and I just want to share with the listeners, like, just have patience and be compassionate if you're on this journey with your body and dealing with your body image. And like Norland said, it's the perfect time to connect with a sex coach, and this is what we do.
And I also feel like this journey is a forever journey, right? It's almost like one of those things that never end. You know, you get to a point where you're like, oh, I feel good about my breasts. And then you're like, oh, I'm aging. I have bags under my eyes. So it's a constant journey. But for me, what helps is to know that as humans, we're all on this journey, and there is not one person out there who feels 100% perfect in their body, because we're all human and we all have our human beautiful flaws. And so, as Dominique said, the patience and the continual love and guidance towards loving yourself more and more each day.
Thank you, Nicole. And one last concluding thoughts is really be careful with what you consume, including the media, what you see every day, daily. Maybe it's a good idea to unfollow certain media standard that's just not realistic. And like what Dominic say, as continue to develop self-compassion and really honoring yourself, honoring your body, honoring the good quality in your bodies, and in whatever ages you are.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, send us some love by sharing, hitting subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps us connect to more incredible people like you. If you want to learn more about sex coaching or therapy, you can find us at sexandbreakfastpodcast.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at sexandbreakfastpodcast. The people helping us cook this all up are Michael Merle, creating our tasty tunes, dishing out our audio and video is Max Rainier, and our delectable visual designs by Brie Vilaubi.